Before we do anything, I'm going to point out this swap is pretty much impossible, and your hopes and dreams are going to be shattered. The fog lights on the 97 Plus XJ are one of the few things that don't bolt on and plug in. If you have an XJ without fog lights, you actually need the entire engine side body harness out of a Jeep with them, including the power distribution center and everything.
This is my lovely 2000. If I pop this for fog 1 and fog 2, there are no pins in here. I can pull this one so you can see the difference. There are pins here. Fog 1 and 2, there's just no pins. ABS has no pins because I don't have that.
On models without fog lights, the wires for them are not included in the engine side harness, so the easiest way to make them work in a factory way is to just run your own wires and relays, which becomes a mess very quickly. You can still use the factory switch. The dashboard side wires should always be there, so for the interior, the only thing you need is a fog light switch panel. Yes, the panel. If you have one of these with a delete plate, you can't just pop that out and put a fog light switch there. You need an actual 3-switch panel. And these are different on 97s. They have different connections for the power outlets, so be aware of that. Like I said, the connector is already there. I've yet to find an XJ where it wasn't, so that's all the interior stuff done. Now, back on the topic of the entire wiring harness, my Jeep actually already had the wires in its harness and the pins in the relay box for the fog lights, despite being an SE. I think that's because it's a 2001, and nearing the end of production, Chrysler likely ran out of different types of wiring harnesses, opting to just put the same one in every vehicle. So there is a good chance, if you have a 2001 specifically, it might already have the pins in the relay box. If it does, you don't have to change the harness, obviously, and the fog lights are thus mostly bolt-on. Mostly because you do still need the header panel harness. Whether the body harness has the wires or not, the header panel harness, also called just the headlight harness, has the connectors for all the lights on the front end, the side markers, turn signals, headlights, and only on fog light models does it have the fog light connectors. Then of course, to fog lights, they are different per side, and optionally new bumper end caps. The base models have these half-covered holes where the fog lights sit. I opted to just cut out those inserts with a file. I mean, there are 1,000 better and more effective ways to do this. I was just using the tools I had available to me at the time.
Oh, come on, it's right there. Oh, it's right there. Destroy. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Yeah. You need a break now. That was like 10 minutes of just...
The last thing I believe would be bolts for the fog light brackets. Stock those are at T40 Torx, but there's no reason they need to be. M8 by 1.25 is the thread pitch to get some regular old hex bolts in there. The Reclaimer had fog lights, and I kept them for this Jeep in my effort to preserve as much of it as possible. I'll admit the factory ones are pretty underwhelming, honestly. You'd be better off using some LEDs here, but yeah, I don't really care. Because of rust, I was unable to separate the fog light brackets from my old bumper, so I just took the whole bumper, and I'm going to swap that out instead of just buying new fog lights that come with brackets. It really is a lot of work for pretty much no gain. But these are the last of the parts from my old Jeep, and after this, I'll finally be done transferring everything over after an action-packed 2 years.
Then the only thing holding them in is these little rivets that attach it to this air deflector. I don't know how you're supposed to get them out. I always just destroy them. Oh, a rock. Yeah, they did. Okay, I'm pretty sure there's actually a slot in here intentionally to just pop those out.
I originally gave up on this video, figured it was too specific for anyone to follow, but Erilyn insisted. Fog lights were actually the first Jeep video I made way back in the day, replacing the broken ones on the first XJ. Oh, how far we've come.
These are a T50. I have sprayed them all with peanut butter. Here's partially what they look like. Both of these ones broke, but they still had enough material on them to actually stop from spinning. But the other two broke off entirely. So what you got to do is grab this with vice grips to stop it from spinning. Alright, I've been at this for like 45 minutes now. I'm officially giving up on these two bolts. So to get the bumper off instead, you can just unbolt the bracket from the frame, which is 3 15mm bolts. Which means I will need to get a new bracket for the other bumper, but I believe I have a lead on that. Alright, here's the old bumper with the bracket permanently attached to it. Powerslave needs a bumper for his XJ, so what I'm thinking is I'm going to give him this one and leave the bracket on it, and then just take his existing bracket and put it on my Jeep. Alright, now that you've got the bumper properly secured, I'm going to go ahead and equip these. Now they are different. You can see the left side is like higher, the left side of the lens is higher than the right side. I'm pretty sure that's supposed to follow the taper of the bumper. Obviously the bumper isn't straight. I don't know, this makes sense to me. Because if the fog light is angled outwards, even however slightly, it throws the light, you know, more to the side instead of like aiming it directly in front of you. Which for something like fog lights I feel like is what you want. Alright, I mean, here we go. This is the first glimpse of what it'll look like. I just put the adjustment screw in because that one never seems to seize like these other two. I couldn't even get these off. I mean, those don't even look rusty, and they were stripping out Torx bits. Now I gotta get this old harness out of the header panel. The only thing I had to take off was the side markers, which, you know, because it's a 2001, they have Torx bits on them. In case anybody was wondering, gotta take them out to get the socket out because it's very crammed in there. And then before I put the new harness in this header panel, I wanted to test it out. So I've got it plugged into the main connector, and then only the fog lights are connected. I want to see if they work first. If I remember correctly, in order to use the fog lights, the ignition has to be on, and so do at least the running lights. Oh my god. One of them works. Okay, well that's a good sign, right? Alright, don't worry, they do both work. The connector is just extremely dirty because it's been sitting for 2 years now, so just by wiggling the connector I was able to get this other one to turn on. Got some dielectric grease soaking in there. I'll try to clean the prongs a bit. Other than that though, I think we're ready to equip this harness in the header panel. One more thing before I put it all back together. This extra wire on the Jeep Cables H4 harness is for the fog light toggle. So I didn't have fog lights when I put the harness in, and if you don't have fog lights, you don't have to do anything with it. But if you do, you're supposed to take one of these red wires off of this connector, cut it, and splice it into this. And that way, the signal, like the trigger wire, whatever it is, works. So that whenever you turn on the high beams, the fog lights shut off, and vice versa, because you can't use them both at the same time.
I know it wasn't much of a tutorial, but I just don't think anyone out there would ever follow this exact procedure for any reason. A quick recap, assuming you have the wires in the main harness already, you need fog lights, bolts for them, 2 relays, the header panel harness, a switch panel, and to cut out the plastic on the bumper caps, which don't need to be removed to do that. You might have also noticed I now have a white grille. I finally found a white XJ at a junkyard. Unfortunately, it had significant rear end damage, so the hatch was destroyed, but everybody hates the white grille anyway because it looks different, but the black grille to me just screams base model. And after all I've added to this one, it ain't much of a base model anymore. Rounding out our exterior lighting, Expo convinced me to get some LED reverse lights. I got these linked in the description. They're almost 5 times brighter than the stock ones, so now I can actually see where I'm going in reverse too. Now that's an upgrade I would recommend to anyone.